Hello and welcome to another edition of the Osceola Seminole Sidelines. My name is Pat Burnham and I am joined today by Nick Carlisle and the legend himself in his Philadelphia Phillies hat.
Stop lying.
Charles Fishbein. All right, guys, got a lot to talk about. This is obviously our weekly recruiting roundtable, and then we're going to get a little bit into Fish's takeaways from Memphis and the 0-3 start in 2024. And Nick, if he's brave enough, may stay on and join us for that particular segment because we don't know if we're going to have JP or not at 3:30. He may jump on with us, but if he's not able to make it today, he is going to join me on Thursday after we preview the Cal Bears Thursday at 3 o'clock. All right, guys, we are back again. How's everybody doing?
Pretty good. The weather's been really, really nice the past few days. I gotta say, it's been making practice a lot easier to go through. Not that it's strenuous or anything, but I've seen you sweat plenty out there.
Uncle Nick's giving us weather reports. You know we're having it rough.
I appreciate good, cool weather. And I know you guys do too.
I'll tell Grandpapa that the weather was good.
This is like
next time I see you, I'm gonna show up with a cane.
Hey, what's that commercial that the theme is set up on older people not talking about things they don't do?
It's like a progressive commercial, I think. Yeah.
We need to get progressive on as a sponsor after that.
Wait, which one am I turning into? Am I turning into more Pat or am I turning into Fish?
I think you've bypassed both of us and you've gone right past both of us on the age scale with that comment. But you're right. Listen, it was ungodly hot in July and August, but it always is. But listen, the weather next week's supposed to be lows in the mid-60s. We're getting a little fall weather. So we're getting closer to October. So, we got one good thing going for us in Tallahassee right now.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, Fish, it's all we have to hang our hat on. You just don't understand. You're not here. You're not here on site.
Yeah, he's still sweating. Down there.
Thank God, man. You guys can take that heat, man.
All right. So let's get started on recruiting, guys. Then we'll kind of move on to football on the field. But obviously, Nick, it was a big weekend for Florida State from an official visit standpoint. Only one kid in town on an official visit, but it was a big one. Ohio State linebacker commit TJ Alford. Tell us a little bit about the visit. We know you spoke with him, and what was your take on what he said, and what you think is going to happen with that recruitment?
Yeah, obviously super important for Florida State to get him across the finish line and get him on campus here. When he set the official visit in the middle of the summer, it was kind of like, okay, that's pretty far down the road. Let's see if he actually makes his way on campus. He didn't end up doing that. He seemed like he had a really good visit, had a really good quote about, not looking at the record of Florida State. I asked him and I said, has Florida State's demeanor or their message changed to you between the summer when you set the visit and now that they've had this start? And he said, no, not really. They've remained the same. And I'm not really looking at the record because my high school, obviously Vero Beach for TJ, has also started 0-3 this season. So, he seemed to really not take too much stock into what's happening in terms of wins and losses, but more on the relationship side of things. And obviously he's got a really good relationship with Ernie Sims. And he's had a relationship with this coaching staff for multiple years. So if you're Florida State, I think you're feeling a little bit encouraged after this weekend that he seemed to have had a good visit despite, what's going on with the rest of the football team. I would describe it as a successful visit. I think it depends on how much and how early Florida State might want to use him if he does flip, and seeing how the current linebacker room is, I would imagine that is very quickly. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes from here.
Yeah, Fish, what are your takes on his visit? The fact that they got him on campus, and do you think they got a legit shot at him?
Well, they promised him a shot at the 5-1-5 defense, so he's going to be the only linebacker they play. But I think they have a legit shot. I felt that all along. He's always liked FSU. It's just he does have people that are backing him in the area that are Florida State allies. So I think they have a legit shot. And anytime you get a guy on visit, we talked about this. The more you get these kids on visit, the better shot they have. I believe that these prospects don't have the emotions of fans who basically think no kid's ever going to sign with Florida State again and they're never going to win another game. These players don't think the same way. They believe that their egos tell them, I'm the best linebacker in the country. I can go there, start, make an impact, play right away, and help Florida State turn it around. A lot of these kids, like he said, do play on teams that do have a lot of losses. That it's not like every one of these guys they recruit plays for a 14-0 state championship team. So I think they sit in a good position. They got to get them back on campus. I think it'd be good to get them on campus for another game, another visit. Keep getting them. They have till January or December to, flip him. And you know what? You never know what's going to happen personally. Sometimes these kids, something personally happens. So they want to play closer to home. You just have to keep recruiting them hard. They have a great opportunity for him to come in and play right away. So I like where they sit. I think Florida State has a legit shot at flipping them in there.
Yeah,
and in terms of visits, the only one that he has set up that he said that he's going to is he's going to the game on November 30th, obviously between Michigan and Ohio State. So there are a couple of more chances for Florida State to be able to get him back. That October 5th game against Clemson is open. Obviously, that would be a quick return, but there are opportunities if Florida State can get him back unofficially.
Yeah, I just worry that visit to the Michigan-Ohio State game is going to be too much to cover. It's going to be within days of the early National Signing Day. I think they've got to get him back for the Florida game. That early National Signing Day is, 2 weeks after that game? So
10 below, man, 10 below.
Well, you got to hope for bad weather.
Who's the weatherman now, huh?
That's right. Hey, I'm the only one that hasn't given a forecast yet. Maybe I'll work one in before the show is over. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some other guys. There's a big week for Florida State with Byron Lewis. Fish. Saturday's coming around fast. He's going to make his mind up. Miami, Florida State, Georgia, Wisconsin. What do you know? What do we need to know? What do you think?
I think they're going to – I don't want to say they're going to land them because watch, man, that thing could get flipped real easily. But Florida State's been in a good spot for a while now. He knows that Norvell's been very good at producing running backs, producing a effective run game. I know they've struggled this year, but he knows what they can do. I think their relationship with Pat Surtain does mean a lot. We've seen how many times he's been on visits. He's one of those kids too. He's at a program that he believes that he's the reason why Florida State's going to win and turn it around. I think he believes in his ability. I believe he believes in Coach Surtain and what Norvell does. So I would say right now Florida State's the lean. A lot can happen. Other schools can offer him way, way more money in the NIL. But I do like where Florida State sits on this one right now.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I think they've got a good shot. You got to hope that they can. Well, he's going to commit before the game on Saturday. So I was saying, I hope they can get a win on the board before he makes his decision. And I'm sorry, Marvin, we have a lot of construction going on around the Osceola studios today, and Murphy's fired up about it. So we'll try to keep her quiet. All right.
I got some ketchup and mustard to chow down on that thing. So
yeah. So all right, so let's go to another commitment. We've got Byron Lewis. Larian Clarity committing on Saturday afternoon as well. This was one that Florida State I thought should have had sewn up long ago. Ole Miss has been the presumptive leader, but now LSU has entered the picture, which does not help Florida State's chances. And they say UCF has become a bigger player in his recruitment. Fish, what do you think about Clarity?
I have not felt real chummy about this for a while. I feel like they kind of made him like a second-tier prospect when they should have made him a priority. I don't think this is going to be as much of a money deal. He's not a 4 or 5 star kid, like high-end kid, but I think he's one of those guys. He's a football player. I think he's in that Terrence Brooks mold of a very good high school football player that could be very productive at the college level. Maybe he's not, that All-American, but you can't have enough of these type of players. You turn on his film, he is always making plays. He's always going downhill. He's very active on that defensive side of the ball, very good football instincts. I think he's going to have a very good college career. Right now, like I said, I don't feel real chummy about where Florida State sits on the Clarity watch.
Yep. All right. Well, Nick, I want to come back to you with a couple of things. I know last week we saw 3 new offers go out to 2025 defensive ends. Hostrup, May, and Linton. I believe one of those guys has since planned a visit to Florida State. Is it unofficial? Who is it? And is it an unofficial or an official visit?
Yeah, so I was able to talk to Chase Linton, I believe, later last week, and he told me that he will be unofficially visiting Florida State this weekend for the game against Cal. This is going to be a pretty important visit. Just in terms of seeing if Florida State can truly put themselves in a position to be competitive with Georgia here. We talked about it last week, Pat. Georgia is very heavily involved. They are way far and away in the lead, but Linton has some interest here in Florida State. Florida State has been trying to get him to come on a visit pretty much since he decommitted from Rutgers on August 17th. So this is a visit and subsequently an offer from last week that's been in the works for a while. And with how Florida State's defensive end board looks right now, this could be one of the sneakily important visits of the fall.
Yeah, I agree. And listen, and the way Toby Hostrup is blowing up, have you seen the number of offers he's gotten since the Florida State offer, Nick?
It has. You would think that eventually it slows down. It has not. The kid is absolutely blowing up. Good for him. Good for him as well.
That's
Personally,
crazy.
A great kid.
Yeah, he is. I read your article, very good article, and the kid's seems very well grounded and trying to understand who he is as a football player and all this attention that's coming to him. All right, some more good news, we think. It sounds like FSU's getting back in the good graces or trying to get Mario Nash to get out of his commitment to Mississippi State. There's a lot of teams involved, about 3 other teams involved in that, including Ole Miss. Mario did a great job of communicating with me before he committed to Mississippi State. It just so happens over this weekend, he started copying me back in on some social media posts. So I do think there's some legit interest there from Nash in Florida State. Fish, he is a true offensive tackle prospect. How important is it that Florida State get back in on Mario Nash and make some headway with him?
It's huge. As you've seen with the offensive line, they need to get bigger. It's the one thing I noticed in the Memphis game, and we're going to go over that, is that they need size. They really do need size up front. They need guys that, people confuse. You could have a guy that's 300 and another guy that's 315, and the guy that 300 just looks bigger because of his thickness as a player. And once he gets in a college weight program, it could be a little I just think that they need to get these bigger guys that have more length, that can get bigger and look like SEC Big Ten linemen instead of these guys that look more like Group of 5 or Group of 4 guys.
Yeah. I think it's good that he's starting to tag Florida State recruiting people back in on social media posts. That usually means there's some legitimate smoke to that recruiting process. And I know that both Nick and I are going to try to get in touch with Mario sometime in the very near future and see if we get some comments on him on where he is with Florida State and exactly what Florida State is telling him. They are in need of some offensive linemen, especially an offensive tackle, and we'll see what happens there. All right, Nick, let's go back to you. Obviously, Florida State had about 50 or so visitors in town for this particular game on unofficial visits. Now, a lot of those kids were 2027s and 2028s, but who did you see out of the 2025s and 2026 that you would note as noteworthy?
There were a couple of 2025 kids that were coming in on visits that were committed to other programs. There was one that was committed to West Virginia. I think that was Ramondo Johnson. And then LaCavion Jackson, I believe, as well. He's committed to Mississippi State. Neither of those guys left with offers, so I'm unsure what the communication was there or how far along they were in terms of their relationship, why Florida State was going to bring them in on visits there. Those were the 2025 guys. Of course, he had a couple of commits that were there as well. Peyton Joseph showed back up for the second straight week. He shut down his recruitment completely. I actually feel kind of bad for him because he was getting some tags by the Twitter maniacs, saying about Florida State. He went and got himself a graphic from On3 to announce that he's shutting everything down. But he's locked in. Malik Clark was there for the game. By all intents and purposes, he seemed to have a good visit. He's kind of like CJ Wiley in the sense that he's hard to get a word more than a couple words out of sometimes. So we'll circle back around on that one as well. And there were a couple of more 2026 guys that are closer to Tallahassee that showed up again. Jacoby Green, 4-star offensive tackle in the Panhandle, doesn't have an offer yet, but clearly likes FSU. He was back for the second straight week. Cameron Brooks out of Thomasville was back again. He's going to be one of the major national defensive end targets for the 2026 class. He was on campus as well. And then a couple of more offers, which, maybe we'll talk about a little bit later. But they offered safety Xavier, I think Larise is how you say his last name. And, he is I know people get tired of hearing this, as Florida State was a dream school for this kid, but I think there's a little bit of weight to be held in that. His father posted some pictures of him back when he was visiting in like youth camps, like all the way back in like the Jimbo Fisher days. So Florida State definitely getting in there with him, and obviously will be a contender with him moving forward. There were a couple of more 2027 offers, but we can push that to a little bit later.
Yeah. They did get some good news on another 2026 kid, a 4-star receiver out of Alexander City, Alabama, Cedarian Morgan. He's got FSU in his current top 5 with Auburn, Florida State, Florida, Alabama, and Ohio State. So has some very positive things to say about Ron Dugans and how he's 6'5" and about 210 pounds, how they use big receivers like himself. He mentioned Keon Coleman and obviously Johnny Wilson, and was, very impressed with how the kind of success they had under Mike Norvell as receivers here at Florida State. All right, Fish, I got an overall question for you. When we came into this season, you thought FSU might benefit from what was your perceived dumpster fire down in Gainesville, which you were right about. That couch is burning out of control right now. But that was with the assumption that Florida State was going to be good. Do you still think with what's there's smoke every day about the fact that Napier is going to be gone? They are having a bad season. Terrible start to the season anyway, 1-2, not competitive against FBS teams, Miami and Texas A&M. Can Florida State somehow still benefit from what possibly going to happen in Gainesville? What does Florida State have to do to benefit from what may or may not happen in Gainesville?
I definitely think Florida State could benefit. A lot of those kids they did recruit. They did not recruit Lagway, but I still believe, listen, when somebody's that good, you find a way through back channels to find out if he has interest. I looked at you look at a Eugene Wilson, a kid that's a wide receiver from Tampa Gaither, who's been one of their top receivers. I think adding someone like that. The one thing that when I went through FSU's roster, they need some upperclassmen, guys that are more experienced, that are productive, that could come in and be captains or leaders. They don't have that right now on the offensive side of the ball. On defensive side, if some of those guys come back, whether it's a Daryl Jackson or a Farmer, those guys can take that role in the offseason. But they need some guys on offense. They really are very young on that side of the ball, and they need someone that will say, hey, listen, this is on us. Forget the coaches. I know everybody always wants to blame the coaches, but these guys need to step up. We're going to get into it, some of the stuff that happened in the game, but a lot of those guys on the side of the ball are just not playing well. And I think a lot of that, you bring somebody in like a Eugene Wilson that's very productive, even out of Florida where they're struggling, and he's still producing at a high level. Those are the type of players you want to bring into your program.
Yeah, well, I hope you're right, and they can benefit from, because I've talked to a buddy of mine that's tight, has access to that program, and he thinks it's a done deal. It's just a matter of when. So hopefully there will be some trickle-down effect from that. But I do think Florida State's got to get some positive momentum going on the field for it to have, for them to compete even for the transfers. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Hopefully that will happen. Now, I did find this fascinating. I was researching some of the Florida State offers. Jared Smith is committed to Auburn, but he's still going on unofficial visits to South Carolina, which is almost twice the distance from his house in Florida State. No, that's not quite that far. It's probably about 2 hours longer. Fish, do you think they've got a chance to go back in on a kid like Jared Smith if he's still visiting other schools?
Listen, I think they have a shot. You've got to want to land these kids. I know everybody thinks it's NIL, but you look at South Carolina. I know from a prior coach that was there that they're not going to go and overspend. They're going to spend on guys that are very good. Jared Smith's a 5-star, but at the same time, they're not going to overspend. They're going to they put their money into guys that are really on campus already, kind of like what Florida State does. That opportunity is there. Some of these guys have to understand too, and this is where Florida State staff has to do a better job of this, is that, hey, listen, if you come here and you're very productive, you're going to probably make way, way more here than you are somewhere else. You may get paid on the front end more, but what's happened with a lot of these schools, and I found out, is they're paying these kids a lot to get them there that first year, but when they're not playing, they basically cut them down that second year. So really, the numbers you're hearing are inflated because they get that first big, pie, and then all of a sudden they're not playing, and they're like, hey, listen, you didn't play this year. You weren't productive. This is what we're going to offer you. And a lot of those kids have to make a tough choice now. Hey, do I want to see what else is out there when I wasn't productive? So I think FSU should have a legit shot. He was one of the reasons why they didn't take Nicholas Clayton. They felt like he and the Brady kid were two guys out of Alabama that they had legit shots at. And that thing, Florida State didn't take Clayton because of those two and Hilson, and they were sitting in a great spot. Well, you know what? Recruiting goes all the way till December. They got to keep recruiting these guys. You never know what's going to happen. What happens if Auburn has, a really bad season? Why can't Florida State get them? They have more, now you have a coach at Auburn that's had 2 bad seasons. What is his proof of concept? Florida State's had 2 good seasons. They've put 2 guys in the NFL. They've shown that they can develop that position. They have a lot to sell. They just got to sell it.
Well, hey, when are you dropping your next fish bits?
Oh man, there hasn't been a lot to put out there, but it'll be pretty soon. So
all right. So any fish bits you want to give us right now, or I'll
hold on to them. I got to make all these people beg a little bit.
All right. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break. Now we've covered the latest on the recruiting front. We're going to come back and talk a little bit about Memphis, the 0-3 start, and where the Seminoles go from here. And we'll be back in about 90 seconds.
The Backshore. That stretch of fluffy sand just beyond the reach of the salty waves. The place reserved for volleyball nets, cookouts, and the air filled with fun and laughter. Celebrate the Backshore with Backshore Apparel. Grab an amazingly soft and comfy Backshore Apparel beach hoodie to keep you protected from the sun's harmful rays. Or the Backshore revamped trucker hat, a modern twist on a classic favorite. Crafted from moisture-wicking fabrics, ensuring they're lightweight and breathable. Not to mention durable with their unique floating feature. Shop now at BackshoreApparel.com. And right now, FSU fans get 10% off your order with code FSU10. Hey Seminole fans, Alumni Hall is your ultimate FSU shopping experience and has moved to a new location off Timberlane Road in Tallahassee. Shop FSU gear from Nike, Champion, New Era, Yeti, and more. Alumni Hall has Seminole gear for the entire family, plus accessories and gifts. Spend $150 and you'll earn $10 off your next purchase with their Hall Pass rewards. Stop by their new location on Timberlane Road near REI or shop anytime online at alumnihall.com. Alumni Hall, where Seminole fans shop. Finding an experienced lawyer you can trust is crucial. With over 50 years of combined litigation experience, the attorneys at Mowry Law Firm are dedicated to providing our clients with exceptional legal services, focusing on car and trucking accidents, premises liability, and wrongful death. Call 904-824-7799, MowryLaw.com.
Welcome back to Seminole Sidelines. I'm joined by Nick Carlisle and Charles Fishbein. And we're going to move on from recruiting and talk a little bit about the Florida State's game against Memphis and obviously the 0-3 start. Nick, you were at practice today. I know we can only share so much from our practice visits. There are things that we cannot talk about, but just tell us a little bit about some of your observations from practice. How does it go? What was the energy level and excitement like? What was the intensity level of this practice as Florida State tries to get back on track against Cal on Saturday night?
I mean, this is either a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, there's ways that you could look at it from both perspectives, but this team did not look like a team that was 0-3. They seemed upbeat. They seemed energetic. The body language wasn't poor, I suppose I should say. They weren't dragging around or anything. Mike was getting on to guys. They did some extra after Mike got on him on the Monday press conference about perimeter blocking. There were some extra perimeter blocking drills today. I thought that was pretty noteworthy. But other than that, you know how it is, Pat. Mike is a man of consistency, for better or for worse. The energy was there, and he seemed to feel like it was a good practice. It was a Florida State practice. I know that's the unfortunate, boring answer.
Yeah, well, hey, listen, at least the intensity level is up and attitudes were good. That does mean something when you're struggling like these guys are. So that's good to hear. All right, Fish, let's get into it. And Nick, too. Obviously, we saw the depth chart come out yesterday. I'm not sure it's worth the paper it's written on because it has not changed in 3 weeks. And we've seen Jeremiah Byers listed on that depth chart without playing at least the last game. I don't know about the game before that. I can't remember that far back. But I was surprised that there was no adjustments. I don't know whether that means we got some adjustments coming and they're going to be sprung on the Cal Bears on Saturday. I don't know what that means, but Fish, I want to start with you. I know that you are advocate of moving to Brock Glenn. I believe Nick is too, but we'll talk about that here in a second. But he is listed as a first-team quarterback, and this is what Mike Norvell had to say in his press conference yesterday about DJU. And we'll get your reaction to it, Fish. You see the moments. He has given us a chance. He is giving us an opportunity to make plays. That was Mike's quote. This is an offense that ranks 125th in third down efficiency, 120th in passing efficiency, and is one of the worst teams in major college football in producing big pass plays in the pass game. Fish, what are you doing if you're in charge of what's going on that roster, particularly at quarterback?
Yeah, I went back and watched the game again before we came on, and there was a one throw where he rolled to his left, squared his shoulders, and just rifled the football. And I think you could get too comfortable as a coach when you watch that and go, man, if I could just correct some things with this kid, he could be really good. But then there was a play later in the game. He had a guy literally wide open in the flats. There's that saying, you can't go broke taking a profit. I preach this to my son when he's playing quarterback. He had the guy wide open, and it's probably a 30-yard gain. I think DJ needs to sit, and maybe he sits and learns for one game, and maybe he comes back and sees. But he's just I believe the quarterback position is the one position that can make other players around them better. He's not making anybody better. I think he actually is making the offense worse. And I just don't see this thing getting any better. I watched that game 3 times, and every time there's plays there. People could sit there and blame the offensive line. The offensive line blocked very well until later in the game. Like early in the game, they gave him time to throw the ball. You look at the long pass, he had plenty of time to throw the ball. On the one play where he took a sack on early sack, I even brought this up. If he slides to his left a little bit, he gives himself a little time. Instead, he walked himself right into a sack. It just doesn't seem like he has a feel for the game. It just doesn't seem like he has a feel for this team. And honestly, I don't know how you can keep putting them out there. They get the ball into the red zone at the end of the game last week, and they don't score a touchdown. It's just, how much of this can you watch? How much can you stomach before you finally say you've had enough and give the other 2 guys a chance? I don't see what they have to lose at this point. They're 0-3. They're not playing for anything. Those guys are your future. Give them a shot.
Yeah, and listen, I do think that Glenn, I went back and watched some of DJU tape from Clemson. He definitely does not move as well as he used to. He's not as quick as Glenn. There's no threat in the running game. You can see defenses are not even accounting for him the vast majority of the time outside of fourth and 1, third and 1 or 2. He did keep a couple of zone reads in this game, which is different, but they didn't, 3 or 4 yards at the most. I think Brock has some enthusiasm. We see it at practice. He plays with enthusiasm. He practices with enthusiasm. He's got some energy. And I also think he's more athletic than DJU and brings a little bit of threat to that run game. Is he going to take it to the house like Jordan Travis could do? No, he's not elusive like that, but he's got good straight line speed. He does have a little wiggle in his hips. We've seen that at practice when he does run the ball, and he likes to run the ball. We saw that in his first game actually against Florida last year. Oh, it was the second he played against North Alabama the week before that. But we did see that Brock is not afraid to take ownership of his decisions in that offense, right? I think that means something. And I also think he's got credibility in that locker room because of what happened at the Georgia game. He's got street cred in that locker room because he was, along with some other kids that weren't ready to play, sacrificial lambs in that game. They should have never had to play in that game. And we can get into that a little bit later. But I think that I agree with you. I think Mike has told us he's going to start DJU with his comments on Monday. I hope there's a plan to get Brock in. Nick, what do you say?
Yeah, it's time. It's time. You need to do something at this point. The season is pretty much lost, or the season that you were hoping for is pretty much lost. Obviously, there's always a chance to come back and do better, right? But there needs to be some kind of spark. And even if Brock is not going to give you an exponential leap in the production on the field, you have to hope that he provides some kind of spark mentally and emotionally. I said this, I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, that I just didn't feel like this offense responded well with DJ as the quarterback. The more that I watch of this team, I continue to feel that way. For whatever reason, I don't think that the connection between DJ and the rest of the offense is there. There certainly isn't a defense out there right now that is scared of DJ and this offense. With Brock, to your point, I think there at least is the element of him using his feet and running, and we did see quite a bit of that in practice today, his ability to just be so much more mobile. I just think that, and especially when you think back to what Jordan Travis was as a leader, maybe this team just responds more to a rah-rah type of leadership than the stoic old veteran personality that DJ displays back there. I think sometimes DJ is a little bit too stoic. It doesn't show enough emotion. And there's just some kind of emotional disconnect there. And you saw it throughout the rest of the game. I felt like the defense started strong, but once it was very clear that the offense was not, progressing throughout the rest of the game, that they just kind of, I don't want to say gave up, but the place got significantly worse. And I feel like as long as you're trotting DJ out there, you need to see if Brock can give you an emotional spark that's just not currently there.
Yeah, and to answer Marvin's question, Marvin, you obviously followed the Florida State football program for a while. If you go back to when Coach Bowden first got here and he did not have a clear-cut starter, or he needed one guy in because he had a strength over the other guy, and it would going back to Wally Woodham and Jimmy Jordan. He played both those guys. When my father first got here and started coaching at Florida State, there was a battle on the field between P.T. Willis and Chip Ferguson. And then you go a couple of classes beyond that, and there was the Casey Ward, Brad Johnson quarterback battle where Brad started the year as the starting quarterback, was not pushing the ball downfield enough to Coach Bowden's liking. They went to Casey and never went back. Obviously, both guys went on to have fabulous pro careers. In fact, Brad Johnson won the Super Bowl as a starting quarterback. So I do think that we've seen in the past that two quarterbacks can work, particularly when you have not identified one as a difference maker in your offense. And I think this offense needs a spark. And I think right now you take that spark where you can get it. And I think the most obvious choice on that bench is Brock Glenn, and see where it goes. As Fish, there's still a lot to play for. But right now, this team is fighting. It's not fighting for an ACC championship bid anymore. It's fighting for a winning season, but it's also the future's here. The future is now for this football program. And I know Mike talked about some of the younger kids after practice today. Nick, I don't know if you had a chance to listen to that interview and gives us a synopsis of what he said. But it certainly seems like there's more conversations about some of these younger kids playing. But let's get this very clear. This is not all on DJ. There are issues everywhere. They cannot run the ball. That affects DJ's ability to pass the ball. Now he's making some bad decisions. He's holding on to the ball too long. You go back to the Brian Courtney throw in the end zone. He should have put that ball just high enough that if Brian can't get it, it's just off his fingertips. He threw it over the goalpost instead of at the crossbar, which would have given Courtney a chance to catch that ball. I don't think there's enough energy there in that offensive huddle. I think Brock gives you a chance to get that done. And listen, again, you've hit rock bottom on offense. 124th in scoring offense, 128th in total offense. Rushing offense, 132 out of 134. At least he makes the zone read a legitimate play, right? Because Brock may keep that ball, and that holds at least one defensive end at the line of scrimmage. So we'll see what happens. Listen, from what Mike said, he's playing DJU, but I think everybody agrees it's just not working right now. And they've got to find something that does work, because this season right now does not look like it's going to have a positive outcome unless there's significant changes on the field. And listen, they've had 8 months to figure out what they're comfortable doing with DJU, and they have not been able to hit on anything yet. And the surprising thing to me, guys, is that out of all the quarterbacks Mike has had since he was at Memphis, moving to Florida State, JT, Jordan Travis, was the outlier in that group. He was the only dual threat guy. So the fact that they are struggling this much with a drop back quarterback surprised me a little bit. Now, you're not getting much help out of your receivers. You're hitting a big pass to Malik Benson every now and then, but it's not consistent. So listen, I think you got to look at least playing Brock this week. I think he's going to start DJU, and we'll see what happens. So,
I mean, there's no question that it's not all his fault. Like, you watch, I mean, I hate to pick on Brian Courtney and Kyle Morlock, but these two, I hope they spent a lot of time in those blocking drills on the outside, because the two of them, I went back and watched. You want to talk about, they either missed or lunged or missed totally or did not get hands on guys. They were as bad of outside blockers on those screens. And people, there was one play I remember watching where the guy blocking, I think it was Courtney, missed the guy so bad, and the ball hadn't even got to the receiver yet. And if he blocks the guy, the play goes for 10 yards, 7, 8, 9, 10 yards. The play works. And coaches always stress this, and people always get on coaches for saying this. They're like, oh, if execution, but it does matter. Like, especially on those screens, if the guys out front, those wide receivers, are not blocking, and that's what they got last year with Johnny Wilson and Keon. They were so good at that. I mean, you go look at Johnny. Johnny was a big loss in that when they ran those plays to the outside, those plays, they worked. This year they're not working. I mean, Ja'Kai Douglas twice just totally whiffed. I mean, the outside blocking on the edge is actually worse than the offense alignment. I mean, I know people may not believe that, but it's terrible. I mean, it's you have to grade. They probably have the lowest grade is those guys on the outside blocking on those screens. And that's a big part of all offenses now. I know people go, oh, I don't like those screens. Those plays, you watch them, everybody runs those bubbles. They run those screens. That is how a lot of offenses work. But all it takes is one guy to make a mistake, and it blows up a good-looking play. And that's where they're having a major problem.
Yeah, I don't know. Listen, the thing I have a hard time seeing is where are the solutions on offense, right? We've seen the defense play better. There's some reasons to be optimistic coming out of the Memphis game about how they played against the run, right? We started seeing Darrell Jackson do some of the things that we saw him do in practice. You go back to the goal line play where he pushes the center back into the quarterback and causes a 4 or 5 yard loss. We saw him make a play on a rundown where he got upfield, had to redirect to the running back and stop the running back for a 1-yard gain. We started seeing more flashes from Josh Farmer being who we thought he was in camp. KJ Sampson is starting to flash a little bit. Daniel Lyons is starting to flash a little bit. Sonny Lalehi had his best game, I thought, and looks to be the best defensive end against the run that they have. So, you got to build off that if you're Mike and Adam, right? You're doing some things well on defense for the first time. Go ahead, Fish.
I mean, I think defensively, I go back, like I said, I watched the game again before we got on here. There was a lot of positives. One, -1 yard rushing in the first half. They really shut down the run game. They had to deal with 2 bad turnovers, and they kept the team to only 3 points. That could have been a 21 to whatever lead at halftime, and they kept the game within striking distance in 2 terrible situations. I mean, you don't want to put the defense in those type of situations that early in the game. They did a very good job. The only thing we spoke about it before the game is they struggled when a guy went in motion. They really struggled to, follow that guy down the field. Anytime they put a guy in motion, it just seemed like Florida State seemed lost. That's something they definitely have to work on is, getting out in those flats, covering those wheel routes, covering that seam. There was a big seam route, especially the play that was a fumble or an incompletion from that tight end. He was wide open, the guy on a seam, and all they did was they moved defenders. They were moving defenders, and there was one play where every defender was looking to the left. You could see all their eyes, and they were looking the totally opposite way. I think, too, one of the other things, Pat, I think and I want to get on a different subject, is I also think that Florida State has to blitz a little better. They bring guys at one spot. You know where it's coming from. I mean, they brought, what's his name, Nicholson on a couple blitzes, and it's like there's no deception when they bring him and where he's coming from, and he has to learn to get a little tighter on. He gets wide. They pushed him out wide and basically pushed him away from the quarterback. But defensively, I thought there was enough in this game. They only gave up 20 points. They only gave up 2 touchdowns, 14 points. The other 6, you can kind of I know that the points are on the board, but they did a great job of keeping this team in this game. The offense let this team down. The offense, and then having the special teams mistake again, where one time one of the guys got called for targeting and the other was the drop ball. But I thought the defense played well enough. If you had told me before the game the defense was going to give up -1 yard rushing in the first half, they were going to start to figure out how to slow teams down, you would have said this team was going to win by 14 or 17 points, and they were on the losing end again. The offense is killing this team. It's just it's sucking the air out of the room, and that's why I think DJ has to go, because they need to find some spark.
Well, listen, you go ahead, Nick.
No, so then that's exactly what my point was. It's like the defense. If you had told me that Roydale Williams fumbled on the first possession of the game and Memphis had the ball at the 30-yard line, something like that.
I think it's like 25.
Something like that.
Yeah,
I would have said surely they score a touchdown easily, and it's a 7-0 hole early. But the defense held strong, held them to 3, and they looked really, really good in the first half. But if I'm on that defense, and I honestly don't care what anybody is saying to me in an interview about, we have confidence in the offense. I'm seeing that offense trot out there and look as pitiful as it did through the first 2 quarters of that game. I'm losing confidence, and I'm just feeling defeated. And I feel like I saw that from the defense as the game went on, amongst the man-to-man coverage bus. So to come back to it, even again, it goes back to what I said. Even if Brock doesn't elevate the level of play exponentially, you need some mental and emotional bump, a spark from making that change. And maybe the offense looks better, and maybe it just rejuvenates the entire team.
Yeah, well, that needs to happen. It needs to happen quick. Now, going back to the defense for a second, they still got a couple issues. What's been affecting them in the past game versus Memphis, which is a lot of the motion stuff and who's got who in the flat based off that motion, and whether they're playing match coverage or man coverage, they're still having issues. And matches are kind of a version of zone and man at the same time. You still got man responsibilities to some extent. You're passing people off. They're not real good at that right now. We've seen that. but it's been for 3. You don't see an improvement in that area. And then the other thing on defense, as well as they played against the run, guys, you still don't see the type of pursuit, gang tackling, and willingness to tackle. I mean, you go back and watch that game, and there's opportunities where guys are not being physical and not trying to make tackles. There was a pass thrown where about 5 guys go after the guy, and nobody tries to bring him down. They're trying to punch the ball out. Your first objective is to slow the guy down and get it and start negating his forward momentum, secure the tackle, and then the second guy comes in after the ball. I've seen they teach that at Florida State. They teach it everywhere. But you, as a good defenses, rally to the ball. You see as many guys in the film near the ball as you can, and they've got to tackle better and they've got to cover better, or we're going to continue to see the same thing. They have not been beaten by a balanced offense yet. Yeah. They have been beaten all 3 games by one-dimensional offenses, right? Georgia Tech and Boston College did not want to throw the ball except when they had to, but they ran the ball at will. Memphis couldn't run the ball, so they had to throw it, and that's what they like to do anyway, and they were able to have success against Florida State. And listen, I didn't think that quarterback was all that good.
But I agree, but if you're facing DJ all spring and all fall, how's your defense really getting tested? You know, like you're seeing for 3 weeks that this offense isn't capable of sustaining drives, getting anything going. Forget touchdowns. They can't get first downs. I went through. I couldn't believe how many possessions they had in the first half. I think they had like 5 or 6 possessions, and they wasted every one of those possessions. They did not do anything. And that I just think that's demoralizing. The defense, if the defense isn't going against an elite offense in practice, and you say they don't hit all that much in practice, maybe that's a lot of it going into why they're sluggish and tackling. Maybe it takes 4 or 5 games. Maybe they got better in this game tackling. There was one play. Listen, I think Nicholson's playing better, but there was one play he needed to stick his head in there a little bit more, and the running back got leverage on him and drove him back, and he picked up the first down. But I still saw more plays, like just watching the D-line penetrate, get through. I thought Jackson, I thought Farmer had his best game.
Yep, I agree.
Definitely had his best game. I thought Jackson played inspired. The only one that did not play well in the D-line, I thought, was Marvin. I thought even Pat Payton, he got up the field. He was setting the edge. He was causing havoc off the edge. Even when he wasn't getting sacks, he was getting pressure, causing their quarterback to have to step up and make plays. There was one play where the quarterback just happened to step up in the pocket because there was so much pressure, and he threw it. I think it was a 3rd and something, and he completed it, but there was pressure on that play. So I think the defense is good enough for them to beat. Like, if that defense plays like that, they're going to be in every game and have a chance. The offense has to get it going. I mean, do I think the defense could do some more? Yeah, it'd be great to get a couple turnovers, maybe get a defensive turnover for a touchdown early in one of these games to ignite the offense. But the offense is just, Pat, I watched, like I said, 30 minutes before we got on here, I watched offense again. I watched the game. It's dreadful. It's like so painful. It's so hard. Like you just have no hope when you're watching it. Like you'll watch the first play, the whole O-line resets the whole defensive line. They get 7-8 yards. The next play, the guy busts through, and the guy from the other team just happens to hit the guy right on the ball, and you're like, oh man, here. Like, it just, every time they have something. They had a big run to the outside. Ferguson is just so lumbering. He couldn't even get out to the edge. He tackled the guy, and they get a holding play. Everything is so hard for their offense. And I think I hate to say it, I hate to blame DJ for this, but it just seems like everybody's in slow motion when he's out on the field with them. Like, you take on the persona of your quarterback, and I feel like everybody out there looks slow and lazy. I mean, honestly, it just, and I hate to say that, that's what I see.
Yeah,
that other play where there was one play that I remember watching where the 2 pulling guards pulled into each other. I don't know if you all remember watching that play.
I remember that. Yeah, DJ got kind of either sacked or whatever. Listen, I'm not putting 100% of this on him. All right, no. It's not. The offense is to blame. There's a lot of guys aren't stepping up, but watching Roy Dale and watching Keziah Holmes, these two can't make me miss them. They're not going to tackle. Like, I could tackle these guys in the open field. It's just they give you no burst. They give you no ability to beat a defender one-on-one in the open. They don't make the first guy miss. And that's hard too, because you had Benson last year. Even when he didn't have somebody that opened a hole for him, he could still make plays. I think they have that in Cam. I think they have that somewhat in Toafili, and I think they're going to have that in Danzy. I'd rather see those young guys that have the ability than watch another game of Roydell. And I definitely don't want to see Kazian in there anymore. The pass to the outside
was horrible.
It was horrible. Like, you couldn't be more unathletic, off balance. Like, he had an easy catch and run, and the guy tripped all over himself. He did not look like a Division I college running back on that play.
Yeah, and listen, I want to go back to what you said about Blake Nicholson, because I do think there's 3 linebackers that have gotten better as the season goes on. One of those is Blake. The other 2 are Cam Riley, who unfortunately left the game early.
He played really, really well. And Cryer is up and it could be every bit as good as Deloach and Tatum Bethel. They've got a keeper there. Like,
I think he's more Tatum Bethune-like than he is Deloach. But I will say this. Football means something to that kid.
Yeah.
He knows where to be. He is physical. He gives you everything he's got. And right now, I think there's a place for a kid like that. Now, is he the most athletic linebacker they've got? No. But I'm going to tell you what, a guy who knows where to be is faster.
He's instinctual. Right. So, like, he plays fast and he thinks fast. So that helps him.
And he knows where he's supposed to be, which he gets to his spot before a guy that may be faster than him that has no idea where the hell he's going.
Pat, I took a ton of notes, man. I'm not lying. Like, I literally broke down every play. All right. When you look at the plays on defense, all right.
Where's my notebook? I swear.
Pat, when you look at the plays that went wrong, I guarantee you know who was on the field. It was Lundy. It's the same guys. I know you can't play these guys. It's sad, but when, like, Cryer's in there, or they had Nicholson, or they had Riley in there, like, you didn't see those plays to the outside that were breakdowns. And then all of a sudden you see Lundy in there and you're like, I guarantee, let's rewind it. Who's in there? Number 10. Who's in there? Number 7. Every time there was a bad play, or you saw the one DN that they throw out there for about 10 plays every game, 56.
54.
54. Byron, like, it's the same 4 or 5 guys every time. Like, it's the other team gets an alert in their phone. Hey, 10, 54. These guys are on the field. Let's roll the quarterback. You can tell when there's a mistake on defense who's in there by the personnel. I'm telling you, go back and watch. It's every single time.
Well, another thing is, it sounds like they were impressed with what KJ Kirkland did. I'd have to go back and watch
Kirkland
specifically again.
Yeah.
But I think Adam mentioned him in his Monday press conference, and it sounds like they're going to play him more. And I'm thinking maybe that competition at that position with him, Shaheem Brown, maybe that brings out the better part of Shaheem Brown's play. I think that's what you got to hang your hat on. I think they need more competition across the board on defense. But certainly, the
only guy on the back end I kind of felt didn't have a good game was Fentrell. Other than that, I thought most of the guys in the secondary did a pretty decent job. Most of their plays in the passing game came from when we're off of those motions and moving either wheel routes, or they were getting their guys they were using their fullbacks or their H-backs. That's where they had a lot of big plays, because they were able to move the Florida State defenders, move their eyes one way, and they were going the opposite way. Honestly, I think if Mike wants to help DJ out, he may steal some of these plays that Memphis used, because I really think it helped their quarterback. And I agree. I don't think their quarterback's that good. I mean, they were talking about him like he was the next Matt Stafford. I mean, come on. Like, now I know why Ryan Clark got fired as a freaking evaluation guy. I mean, they were making this Memphis team seem that great. They scored 20 points, and honestly, Florida State gave them 6 of them. I don't think
13 were off turnovers.
Yeah, I think Florida State, if they get anything out of the offense, that's a 10 to 14 point win last weekend. And that's the sad thing, is their offense keeps letting them down. And until that changes, I think you're going to see more of the same.
Yeah, and listen, I think we're going to see team in Cal that is similar to Memphis in a lot of ways.
Dude,
they're good on defense. They've got one of the best linebackers in all of college football right now, Teddy Buchanan.
Yeah.
He transferred up from UC Davis and leads. He's 17th in the country in tackles. He's in the top 30 in TFLs. They pressure the quarterback more than any other team that Florida State has played, according to PFF, 60 total pressures. That's one more than Memphis had, a lot more than Georgia Tech and Boston College have through 3 games. But it's a balanced offense. They want to throw and pass. They found their running game against San Diego State, much like Memphis did against Troy. They have a good quarterback, but not a great quarterback. He's a kind of a, for lack of a better explanation, he plays better than maybe his talent, the talent that he has. He's kind of a gamer.
He's a good system kid. He fits what they're doing.
Yeah. So I think you got a team that's fairly similar to Memphis. They should not be as good as FSU on the lines of scrimmage. You can have good receivers, and they do. They've been good on defense. I think this game sets up a little bit of like the Memphis game to me. And I have not watched enough tape on Cal yet. I'm going to get into that tonight and start on my finish my scouting report. But I think this team is very similar in its makeup to me as Memphis was.
I watched the game the other night, and Cal's going to wear that tight end out because that's one position. I mean, you want to talk, their tight end is good, and they throw to him a lot. And they're going to – Florida State, whoever's covering them, better have his, track shoes on because he's going to be running a lot, chasing that tight end. They're good, and they don't make mistakes. They run the ball very well. I don't know if the Ott kid's back, but they found another running back. If they have Ott back, Ott's going to be the best running back Florida State's seen so far, and maybe the best back Florida State's seen all season. He's special, and you have a 1-2 punch. They're going to run the ball, so Florida State's going to have another opportunity to try to shut down Cal's run game. My whole thing is a lot of this comes into trends, and the one thing that could hurt Cal, all right, they're not a pro team. They had to go to Auburn 2 weeks ago, then fly all the way back and have another game, and now they're going to Florida State. That's a lot of travel for a college team. Will this team have their legs?
Yep.
I think that's going to be a big thing in this game. I think that's an advantage Florida State and gives them a chance to actually win a game.
Yep. Nick, you got any thoughts on Cal?
Nothing that hasn't already been said. y'all got it pretty good, but I mean, like I said kind of last week, it's not so much about what Cal does, it's about what Florida State needs to do. There need to be changes on both offense and defense. We've talked it to death over the past 20 minutes.
3 weeks.
Personnel, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Well, maybe not that far back, but there needs to be changes. There needs to be some leadership, I think, develop here on both sides of the football. As much as the coaches want to take the blame for it, and I'm sure there is blame to be placed on the coaching staff. At some point, the players, somebody needs to step up somewhere and set expectations. And the level and set the level of play to be a standard above what it is right now. It doesn't help, especially defensively, when some of those players that you would hope would step up are some of the same players that swindled you for more cash in the offseason. But there needs to be some leadership. And it's more about the changes in personnel that Mike puts in this week or does not put in this week, more than I think it is about what Cal does.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's going to be another interesting Saturday at Doak Campbell Stadium. I do think Florida State has a chance to get both these next 2 games. There will have to be substantial offensive improvement against Cal. I do believe that. Now, SMU, I just don't think is a very good football team. So, I mean, I'd be shocked if Florida State does not come back home with a win there. But I think this is going to be another interesting weekend. I'm glad to hear that you thought the energy level was good at practice. That's very encouraging. We'll see how that pans out. All right, guys, we've been on here about an hour. We've talked a little bit of recruiting. We've talked a little Florida State. We've talked a little Cal. We will be back tomorrow on the Osceola Seminole Sidelines. I believe it's going to be Kurt, Bob, Nick, and Jerry. They will have some of their takes on what they saw at practice this week. They'll be out there again tomorrow. I will have our scouting report at some point tomorrow night, early Thursday morning on Cal. We've got our practice report from the day at theosceola.com. My Takeaway Tuesday article just dropped, so you can check that out if you're an Osceola subscriber. It's about 8 things I think about Florida State football coming out of week 3 and heading into week 4. There's going to be some takes you might agree with. There's probably going to be one a lot of Florida State fans aren't going to agree with, so I look forward to hearing our subscribers about that. But we will be back tomorrow with Seminole Sidelines, and hope that you will subscribe to our YouTube channel and check in with us daily, as we will have shows every Monday night at 6 and Tuesday through Thursday at 3 p.m. on the Osceola YouTube channel. We hope you have a great rest of your day, and we will see you tomorrow. Thanks, guys.
Take it easy.